Okay, so beyond the financial world, blockchain has been used to manage supply chain, right? It's one of the most popular applications of the peer-to-peer network, and it has been used by several prominent retailers like Walmart, what else? Carrefour, and also big FMCG companies like Nestle, Unilever. But also, the blockchain has been used to manage civil certificates. Citizens certificates like land ownership or a state gazette or the court system. Like for instance, the country of Estonia has adopted blockchain to manage the ID documents of the citizens. But now we're going to talk about the use of blockchain to manage documents in general, yeah. So beyond just the supply chain and the citizen affairs documents, certificate issuance, yeah, actually, what are some of the most potential application of decentralized technology in document management in general?
Yeah, and first of all, it's important to understand is the plus that the centralized system based on blockchain can provide. The big thing that the blockchain has is the singularity, unicity of digital items. Per se, if I have an MP3 file, apologies, and I make 5 copies, there are 5 copies of the MP3 files. With Bitcoin, if I cannot make a copy of my Bitcoin and give it to 5 friends, because once I give my Bitcoin to somebody else, I don't have it anymore. And in the digital world, this is something that is very important in evolving into future uses of digital management of things. And this is in a decentralized manner. So it's not because it's managed by a server, managed by a particular company or government office, but in a public network, people can have a singularity, unicity of digital items, which can be documents, can be many things. And this is a very important aspect because the protection is mathematically cryptographic, while a piece of paper can be counterfeited or copied many times and made many valid duplicates of the same thing. In the digital world, this is impossible. So there where there is the need to guarantee the validity of a document and the unicity, if it's, for example, a very common requirement that there is now is the fact that bank give loans based on document from trade. So if I have a bill of lading showing that I am in possess of a huge quantity of natural resources or whatever it is, and these are traveling to come to my country, but I want already get some money in advance on this purchase, I can use the bill of lading to lock the goods with the bank and get a discount. The problem is that if I make 5 copies of this bill of lading, I can go to 5 banks and get 5 loans with the same guarantee. And when I don't pay back my loan, the first bank that will get the guarantee is the lucky one, and the other 4 banks remains with nothing. And this is an example where a document in the digital format or a paper document with the digital twin that guarantee the unicity is a very powerful tool where banks don't need to subscribe to the same service provider, but just use the blockchain that is public and yet have the guarantee of the unicity of the document that is provided to them. This is one example on the quality that blockchain gives on the singularity of documents. Then there is all the aspect related to the flow of documentation. So where a form has to be filled, and if the values are like that, then this other form has to be filled. If the values are different, another form has to be filled. The form has been validated by a particular government employee, need to be signed by a particular professional that is, subscribing a certain album. And all this now is happening on paper with very easy capacity to counterfeit signature, put fake stamps on it, and is a very slow process because sometimes the office of these government employees are located far one from the other, so people need to travel or mail the documents, and documents get lost. So it is a procedure that slow down a lot of the bureaucracy, the needed paperwork, and with blockchain, this can be done with a cryptographic signature, which can be also the government issued ones, and can be guaranteed the logic of the flow by rules that are written into the blockchain, sort of smart contract per se.
Okay, and what is the cryptographic signature, and then like why it's more reliable to guarantee the authenticity of the document?
I call it cryptographic signature and not digital signature because digital signature can be misleading. People think that when they're signing their signature on the small display, paying with a credit card at the restaurant, they're doing a digital signature. That's simply just a different way to acquire their signature compared to a pen on a piece of paper. That's not a digital in terms of mathematically secure. A cryptographic signature is done by using a particular private key that is being issued with a certificate by the government in an electronic ID card, rather than obtaining a different way. Depends on who is the issuer of the identity that contains the digital signature, and is applied by doing a mathematical operation, usually with a small chip inside the ID card, rather than with a cell phone or whatever else. So based on the level of security and guarantee of the quality, but is a mathematical operation and give a unique answer. So given a certain content, which is the form, which is whatever it is, the mathematical operation results with a specific result. So it's not like a handmade signature that can be, you need a graphologist to see if it's authentic or not, and there is a space for error. That's mathematics. So the only option is that somebody else have stolen the private key or pointed a gun to the head of the person signing and have obtained a signature. But this can happen also with the handmade signature anyway.
Okay. So what are some of the examples of the institutions or the organizations which have adopted blockchain to manage their documents? And usually what kinds of documents they store on the blockchain? Are these only documents which have to do with transactions only? Or it can be, any types of documents?
The European Union has a very interesting program where they put together a collective sets of blockchain with specific needs in order to be compatible, where each one can handle documents of different nature. For example, the student, they have a nice video that explains how this works. The students go to school, get a diploma. The diploma is given in paper, but the original one is digital on a blockchain, and then apply for a job, and the company that is hiring this person validate the validity of the diploma by looking at the QR code and acquiring the blockchain. At the same time, when I get paid with probably a government issued digital currency, and this happen through the blockchain, and then decide to apply for a loan for the house, to purchase a house, and also those forms, those documents are processed through blockchain, and the validating financial institution that is financing the loan has the guarantee that the documentation presented is original and is not fake or counterfeited. And this is something that is happening now. So the European Union is working in putting together this plan, and actually they're doing some tests. I know they have a modified version of Ethereum, but there are many parties participating with different technologies. And this is, I think, the most excellent example of the use of blockchain and cryptography for managing flow of documents and validation of documents that I can think of.
Okay.
But attention, this can be used also between consortiums of companies. So for example, there is a franchise of shoes shops, and there is the distribution of the shoes rather than the balance. In order to work in full relaxation without having to trust a central party that manages the database, they can use a blockchain and all that deliverable that they have in terms of documentation that prove the stocks, rather than between the franchisors if they want to provide each other some stock, etc., etc. If done with a blockchain, there is no risk of somebody cheating, there is no risk of somebody taking shortcuts or somebody getting forgotten in the process, which is a solution that doesn't have to come from a government but can be implemented when it comes to a consortium of companies.
Okay, yeah, so I want to go into like the technicalities of how the system is being used. Like for instance, that storing the university diploma in the blockchain. So the diploma is being stored, like the original document is being stored in one network, which can be accessed and validated by different institutions, which require the document. Like for instance, when someone's applying for a job to a company, or when someone wants to take a master's or PhD. So is that the case? So it's on the same network, which can be validated by different institutions?
Yeah, the interesting things about the blockchain is that a lot of items can live off chain and yet being validated by the blockchain. So the most common use, even if not the one that I agree with the most, is the fact that the blockchain has only the digital fingerprints of all the documents, which are the hashes. This guarantees privacy on the content of the document, so you are not to be giving to all the world access to your own personal data. You keep the data offline on your own storage in your cell phone, whatever else, or in a safe place. And when you deliver this document digitally to somebody, they can just use the document to produce the fingerprint and validate it against the blockchain. So the blockchain doesn't contain, say, the actual data. Contains the fingerprints of the data travels safely in privacy and respecting all the GDPR and rules that there are on privacy, and is only used to validate things. Then there is what usually people call metadata. So you can have the full data off chain and some metadata on chain. This metadata can be used to do the logic of a flow for documentation. For example, you can have a validation if I am over age of 18, because looking at me, I can look younger than 18. And this gives the bartender the authority to give me a drink, because without revealing the rest of the data in my documents. So I can prove that I match certain criteria without having to disclose all the information that are not necessary to the third party to validate. This is also useful when there is a documentation flow that follows some logic. For example, I go to the doctor to make a health certificate, which is necessary for me to join the gym, and the doctor is subscribed in a list of doctors. So the signature in the digital format of my health certificate is done by an identity that is authorized to do the kind of signature. The form with information to be filled in is provided by the government. So you can go in the blockchain of the government to query in only the form. Then you fill the form, and only the data fields are signed by the doctor and put in a certain container. And when I go to the gym and provide them in my cell phone, let's say, the validation of the health certificate, they can query on the blockchain the validity of it. And this creates the possibility to have a very fast flow and remove the possibility that people fake documents just to get to the gym, even if they couldn't, because they have a bad sickness that will be transmitted to everybody else. Think about the coronavirus now. It is all those passes that are thinking green pass that shows that you've been vaccinated or not, and how people is reacting to it in terms of privacy, in terms of freedom. And with the simple mathematical things, people can still demonstrate that they took the vaccination without having to disclose other kind of information, which is a powerful thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And besides efficiency, like what's the advantages of the decentralized document management system compared to the centralized one?
Well, one immediate thing that comes to mind is that the centralized one is in the hand of somebody or some company. So if I want to use the data, I want to use the system, I need to ask permission to this person or company, right? If it is decentralized and is open, anybody can attach it to the system and manage the data. So it's like when you buy a cell phone, you don't buy something that has the capacity to make phone calls, because the cell phone needs the cell phone network. So you give your money to Samsung, that gives you the machine that can connect to the network, and then you give the money to the phone company to make the phone calls. You need both, right? The blockchain is like the phone network. Then whatever application has its own other things is like the cell phone. So you need to have a cell phone, so which is an application that has its own things, off-chain, etc., which connect to one or more blockchain in order to recover or validate data or process data. So these are the two aspects. One is the infrastructure, the network, let's say the peer-to-peer network of the blockchain. Some can be private, some can be fully open, some can be permissionless, means only certain people can write, but everybody can read, or whatever is the set of rules. Some have an administration that can tell this user can do this, the user can do that, but they're still decentralized, they're still open to be accessed. And then you have what in cryptocurrency is called wallet, which is this application that is able to connect to the peer-to-peer network, fish the information out, and do what you need to do with it, or post information into the blockchain, paying the fee that need to be paid, as if I'm making a phone call with myself.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. My next question is, what are some of the limitations of the peer-to-peer network in document management at this time?
I would say the limitations are all cultural, are all the fact that there is not yet an infrastructure that is ready to manage those documents, because blockchain is born to satisfy a need for a decentralized currency, right, which was Bitcoin. And it didn't evolve much from there. Yes, Ethereum for sure created a smart contract, but it's always based on a cryptocurrency aspect. While documentation flow requires a different way to protect the security of the blockchain and a different way to process the logic flow of documentation. So there are some new projects. We've been working with WBC now, DecBC, probably DocBC for the documentation version of the platform. But it's something that is in its infancy. So there are some experiments done, there are going to be upgrades made, and slowly we're moving in the direction with the time that it takes.
Yeah, and then what is the most appropriate consensus mechanics for document management?
Well, you are asking this question to somebody that is hardly objective on the thing. So to me, obviously, the proof of participation consensus system that has been designed for WBC is highly adapted to documentation flow and logic compared to proof of work or proof of stake or proof of capacity, other things. It will be then the public to judge when these things are applied. But surely need to be something that is decoupled from cryptocurrency. You will never think that some hospitals need to pay fees, or need to have a balance in order to just move a medical record. Even less, they don't need to run a mining operation just to have access to the database for the medical records. So for this reason, there is the beautiful concept architecture of blockchain, but there is the need of more specific design. That's what we're doing with proof of participation, that is not based on a cryptocurrency, is based on the participation of the network, of the nodes in the network, to secure the data.
And then what are some of the security issues when it comes to document management in the peer-to-peer network?
It is very important that the architects that design the application to run on the blockchain do that with a very good understanding of the centralized system. I saw implementation that made me put my hands in my hair, because we're done with the concept of a centralized system, but on a decentralized platform, which doesn't make sense. So there is a cultural shift in designing application for the centralized system compared to the application for centralized system. I trained a lot of development teams that were approaching this need, and you see really when put in front of the fact, they are like, okay. And it takes quite some time, an average of 6 months to a good developer to understand the decentralized mechanics and don't do mistakes in coding the centralized application. For an architect, for somebody that designed the system, is even more important, obviously.
Okay. And what are some of the security concerns? Like, for instance, when it comes to an attack, what are some of the loopholes which can be exploited by hackers?
If the consensus mechanics is safe, is all based on the architecture, how the application has been designed. So it's hard to say in general. If things are designed well, they're safe. If things are not designed well, they're not safe, right? So when we say blockchain, we're not saying of a specific application. We're not saying Microsoft Word, which is a specific application. We are saying word processor. Word processor can be of many different software from different software houses. Some can have bugs, some not. So when we look at the consensus mechanics, we look at the peer-to-peer network, and the consensus has to be designed properly, not to be gamed. Then there is all the layer of the application implemented on the centralized system, and all the applications like the wallets that are off-chain. So there are many places where things need to be done properly to have a secure system. But that's why we are at the infancy of it. People is trying, people is making mistakes. Even the hacker that potentially can attack for a profit are not up to date with the latest concepts. So, is a cat and mouse race at the moment, and more sophisticated is the attacker, more sophisticated is the system to defend it from attacker. But this happens in every application that runs online, and not only peer-to-peer networks.
Yeah. Okay, so like basically the advantages of the peer-to-peer network in document management lies in trust, right? Because like the cryptography can make sure that the document is authentic.
So you remove the need of trust. That's the point. You remove the need of trust. A central party with the information that are delivered. When I connected to Facebook to see the message that my friend sent to me, I'm trusting Facebook to actually deliver to me all the messages that people send to me, because people send a message to Facebook and Facebook pass the message over to me. If they want to censor some of my friends, I simply don't see their messages. So I need to trust Facebook with the data that is then provided to me. In a decentralized system, you don't need to trust because there is no central party. So guaranteed, if the friend is sending the message is there for me, because unless my friend does something wrong in sending the message. But if the process is correct and respect the rules of the decentralized system, I do receive what I need to receive. So the centralized system removes the need to trust a central party with the data, which is one very important thing. So the things that don't happen are censorship, the things that don't happen are hiding data or controlling people's lives, like removing accounts or other things that centralized systems do.
Yeah, and so it can also prevent falsification of documents, yeah, because speaking of diplomas, in Indonesia, we know like lots of organizations which provide services whereby like they can give you bogus diplomas or bogus certificates. But yeah, when it's done in the peer-to-peer network,
Pay attention, if the source is corrupted, then they can make fake digital certificates, right? There was a case in of a school financed by the European Communion, and this school had hundreds of teachers, thousands of students. Every year, a lot of students come out with their diploma, and comes up that the school didn't even exist physically. It was just an empty field. Everybody took their money, put money in the pocket, and they were selling out certificates to the students. So if that was the case, if they have the authority to issue the digital certificate, which is signed by an authorized signature, you're going to have a bogus digital certificate because it doesn't make people honest. But avoid somebody to go home, use Photoshop, take a friend's certificate, change the name, print it out, and use it as a valid certificate, right, to present whatever is needed.
Yeah, so again, it goes back to the integrity of the person or the institution using it, right? Yeah.
But you cannot avoid that, right?
Yeah.
Cross-check, you're going to make it much more hard and difficult. For example, if the logic of the centralized system, in order to release the certificate, need to have an history of absence or presence in the school, plus the grade for all the exam, the need to be registered at the due time, etc. Creating a certificate without a student having had all, maybe fake, but still has to have them, exam given historical in time, meaning that if it's 5 years of study, you need to have 5 years of exam spread along the 5 years, which means that if I knock at your door and I want a certificate tomorrow morning, you can't, because you need to have an history of 5 years of exams done. So this kind of thing can make it more difficult to create a digital document that is bogus, but you still cannot avoid the corrupted humans from doing things that are not correct, right?
Yeah. Okay, so besides European Union, like what are some of the other regions or countries which have adopted this?
Singapore surely is one of the countries that adopted blockchain for a lot of functionalities, even in non-financial aspects, and there are a lot of interesting projects there. Hong Kong used to do some interesting stuff in London, Dubai, the UAE are doing a lot of things as well. Surely the point is some country are leading the innovation, other country are going to purchase a product made by those that led the innovation. So it's a matter of decision where companies or a country decide to be. If there is, I have this interesting thought that all the Photoshop that were in towns, also in towns that are touristic, had this machine that automatically you put the roll, is going to develop and print all the photos in the roll. And when digital cameras start coming out, a lot of the shop just look at the digital camera and then finally went bankrupt because nobody was developing, films anymore. And those that were intelligent start putting a couple of computers with Photoshop and offering services of cleaning it up, putting it nice and printing in good paper, etc. And those are the one that survived and the one that kept all the business from all the other shops that didn't survive, right? This probably is the same thing with this advent of blockchain. A lot of government are investing in it, a lot of private companies are investing in it. Those that don't do, probably gonna be wiped out by the wave of decentralization that comes. And I'm talking about also large institutions. I think about YouTube and all the censorship and oppressing things that they do, and think about D.Tube as an alternative of YouTube. There is a decentralized system that stores videos and work perfectly. And being decentralized, nobody's in control of what video are put in there. If not the person watching them, they can decide not to watch videos that are disturbing for them. But even Twitter is investing a lot of money to have a decentralized content management system, because they don't want to be responsible for the content that people post. So if the ex-president Donald Trump writes something that is annoying, and Twitter is in the bad position that they need to cancel their account or whatever, they will not be able to, because if it is decentralized, they have no control over what people post. They decide not to show it if they are the one providing the interface. But if it is decentralized, anybody can create an interface and filter content. So they remove themselves from the ugly position of being the censor, with a gun on their head, probably from some other party of the government that don't want the content there. And you leave the decision to the people, right? So social media, storage, data storage, application, website, everything that now is centralized in the hands of somebody that can shut it down or censor or control with the centralized system is going to be in the hand of the people. That's it.
Yeah. So I think it's also more efficient, because like now, for instance, when we're applying for a job or we want to take postgraduate degrees, we no longer have to photocopy all the documents and then bring them in a plastic folder, maybe. So
absolutely. Yeah. And they could be fake as well. So
and we can lose them. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Roberto. So I think that's all from me. That's all that I would like to ask. Would you like to add anything else?
No, I think this is quite clear. To boil down to document management, digitalization of documents, there are a lot of technology like artificial intelligence, machine learning, and blockchain as well in the full flow and management of the documents. And I think the company working in these fields really should invest in to be up to speed with what's going on. That's it.
Okay. So it will be interesting to see like more countries and organizations adopting this to make document management less a hassle. Yeah. Okay. So thank you, Roberto, for our conversation, and see you again next week.
All right.
Yeah. Bye.